The history of biology, examining a digital game for improving students' nature of science conceptions and promoting student engagement in biology. Improving students' scientific and technological literacy and the development of 21st century skills is quickly becoming a goal of education systems around the world. Rapid advances in ICT are reshaping the learning styles of many students of the next generation, to include fluency in multimedia and simulation-based virtual settings, communal learning, experiential learning, guided mentoring, and collective reflection. This has created challenges for education, including transforming students' learning processes in and out of school, as well as engaging student interest in gaining 21st century skills. One avenue for addressing these challenges is through digital games, as they allow learners to immerse themselves in highly interactive and engaging experiences which can lead to the development of 21st century skills. Digital games are currently implemented in mathematics, language arts, reading, physics, natural science, and engineering, to name a few. Studies have evaluated the effectiveness of digital games for learning in science education and found enhanced learner experiences and development of positive experiences towards the subject area, increased student motivation, enhanced learning generally, improved multiple cognitive outcomes from recall to higher level thinking, as well as improved performance on problem-solving tasks. Digital games have significant educational value and may also help students learn elements of the nature of science. The nature of science refer to science as a way of knowing, or the values and beliefs fundamental to the development of scientific knowledge. Teaching about the nature of science has been a goal of science educators because it helps students avoid misconceptions, it helps them to learn science content, develop problem-solving skills, and become more interested in science. Research around the nature of science has concluded that K-12 students and teachers do not possess adequate nature of science conceptions. Studies including implicit instructions were somewhat mixed and signal the importance of the teacher's role in nature of science instruction. Conceptions are best acquired through explicit, reflective instruction, and at the moment, studies exploring the impact of digital games on those conceptions is quite sparse. This research project explores teacher candidates' demonstration of learning about the nature of science as a result of playing a digital game called The History of Biology, as well as their views of the role of the history of biology in teaching and learning nature of science. It is important to note that this study took place in a science methods course in which explicit reflective NOS instruction was implemented. For example, activities included a video case study on misconceptions, lectures on the nature of science, as well as readings from the literature about the nature of science, a biology timeline assignment that traced the history of biological discoveries over time, as well as playing the History of Biology game. The History of Biology is a browser-based scavenger hunt style educational game that has 14 levels. It's designed to teach high school students about the history of biology, covering topics such as early microscopes, classification, taxonomy, heredity, genetics, and evolution. The biology include the advent of cell theory, discovering heredity, the molecule of heredity, the genomics revolution, including DNA sequencing and genetic databases. In addition to teaching biology content knowledge, the game explores the work of 14 scientists, including their contributions and the effect of the social, political, and cultural environments in which they lived, and how that shaped their research. Hence, the game includes an exploration of ethics, social, political, and cultural issues that were inherent in that particular time period. The game also explores the research and the pivotal discoveries that laid the foundation of our current understanding of biology. Additionally, the game looks at the role of women in some of the greatest discoveries. It is noteworthy to mention that the game is aligned with core senior high school and introductory university college biology curricula. The study was conducted in Ontario, Canada, and the participants included 9 teacher candidates in an intermediate senior biology methods course in a Faculty of Education. The participants played the game over a 4-month period. Data for this study included pre-post Likert scale nature science questionnaires, including 30 items which were designed to measure the extent to which participants agreed with each nature of science tenet. It also included semi-structured interviews conducted after teacher candidates played the game, as well as notes that teacher candidates made while they played through the 14 levels of the game. Table 1 illustrates the nature of science aspects included in the questionnaire with an example of a corresponding tenet. Table 1 illustrates the nature of science aspects that were explored in this study. Along with the aspects is a description of each and includes a sample of a nature of science tenet taken directly from the nature of science questionnaire that students completed. For example, tentativeness, empirical basis, subjectivity, sociocultural embeddedness, human inference, imagination, creativity, and laws and theories were the various aspects that were explored. A description of each is included in order to further clarify what the aspect addressed in the study. For example, sociocultural embeddedness refers to science as a human endeavor which is influenced by the society and culture in which it is practiced. A sample of a nature of science tenet taken from the questionnaire includes scientific ideas are affected by their social and historical setting. Data analysis for this study included generating pre-instruction and post-instruction profiles of participants' views of the nature of science. Hence, data from each questionnaire were used to generate a summary of the participants' views of nature of science related to target nature of science aspects. Interview transcripts were analyzed and compared to validate participants' responses to nature of science questionnaire items, and the analysis of the data constituted an interpretational analysis framework executed through the process of thematic coding. Teacher candidates in this study held positive views of using digital games in science education. They unanimously agreed that science teachers should use digital online games in their science teaching for the purpose of engaging students, for providing relevance, for the reinforcement of content, and for promoting 21st century skills. For example, in terms of engagement, one teacher candidate commented that digital online games make learning more interesting as gaming is exciting for students. It definitely makes learning a little bit more exciting using digital games. Another commented about promoting 21st century skills as this is the way the world is going. We are online, we are digital, and need to teach those skills. It is another medium which would be a step out of conventional teaching. Teacher candidates found it difficult to come up with a suitable description of the nature of science despite explicit reflective nature of science instruction during the course. They used phrases such as multiple ways of doing science and science is created and not completely objective. In terms of their pre-nature of science conceptions, these included several naive ideas about the nature of science, and none of the teacher candidates held well-informed views of the nature of science elements, though several did hold adequate views of certain conceptions. Changes in teacher candidates' nature of science views were evident after pre- and post questionnaires about the nature of science were compared. Changes in teacher candidates' views were particularly evident with regard to the following nature of science aspects: tentative nature of science, the distinction between observation and inference, human imagination and creativity, the social and cultural nature of science, and subjectivity in science. Changes in teacher candidates' nature of science views indicate that by the end of the study, teacher candidates agreed that the process of scientific inquiry often involves a high degree of creativity, that observations are theory-laden, that intuition plays an important role in scientific discovery, that science is a part of social and cultural traditions, and there are some scientific studies which are considered valid and significant and are not based on experimentation. They remain neutral when it came to the tenet that the most ideal form of scientific inquiry is when scientists divorce themselves from their own personal emotional involvement with the inquiry. By the end of the study, teacher candidates disagreed that students in science should be discouraged from generating creative ideas and encouraged to think logically and carefully. They also disagreed that science is procedural more than creative. Summarizing changes in teacher candidates' nature of science views, it was noted that more pronounced changes occurred in nature of science aspects having to do with the role of human inference, imagination, and creativity in the development of scientific knowledge, and creativity, art, and intuition seen as playing a vital role in scientific discovery. Less pronounced changes were observed in nature of science aspects having to do with the empirical basis and the relationship between theory and law. Results revealed that teacher candidates identified 3 factors that most likely influenced them to change their nature of science views. The first factor is explicit instruction, which was cited as a key factor for influencing their views. Teacher candidates ascribed changes in their nature of science views to practicum experiences. For example, one teacher candidate indicated that, "My classroom this past semester, we were very hands-on and playing with things and just interacting with scientific ideas that I could incorporate into teaching about science. I originally thought that science was very factual and there's a process to things and you have to follow the steps. But in working with my students, I realized that they have brought a lot more creativity to it and that they had fun with it, and in doing that, they learned a lot more than they would have doing the scientific method." Third factor that most likely influenced teacher candidates to change their nature of science views is the history of biology game. The game was credited with contributing to the learning in science as it provided a context for teaching science as well as science content. There was unanimous agreement that the game is also effective for teaching and learning about the nature of science. Educational implications for this study include the fact that future studies on games such as the history of biology are necessary in order to assess the potential of these games to advance a broad set of science learning goals, including motivation, conceptual understanding, science process skills, understanding the nature of science, scientific discourse, and identification with science and science learning. Such research is needed to more clearly illuminate the full range of science competencies that can be supported with digital games. Thank you for viewing the presentation. Should you require further information on the study, please do not hesitate to contact us at the information provided below.